What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Bitchuation Room Podcast live stream in the live flesh or in the future flesh. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for pressing play. What a show. What a day. This is being recorded on a Tuesday, and this is a massive week for the news. If you are a masochist and you follow politics the way we do, or just pay attention to anything that's going on, you know, ignorance truly is bliss. And there are elections going on right now in New York as well as Colorado. We will see whether Jamal Bowman successfully defeats APAC money, or if, genocide will get you elected. So there's that. We'll also see if Lauren Boebert wins her primary race over a new district that she's running in. Very exciting. And then, of course, Thursday, the moment we've all been waiting for, two geezers fight. So there'll be oatmeal and marbles in the oatmeal. They'll have to dig for it. It'll be fun. So, yeah, I mean, I wish. Honestly, that would be more productive of a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But we will be, I believe, streaming live for that, folks. I think I'm going to do that. So if you are here, please like and share the stream right now on YouTube. Let people know what you watch. Also, if you are listening as a podcast, give this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It'd be so nice of you. We've got some lovely reviews. We're 10 reviews away from 1,000 reviews, which means we're 10 reviews away from a free t-shirt for whoever is the 1,000th reviewer. All right. In your size. Who can offer you a better deal than that? Free in your size? Are you kidding me? In the year 2024? Get out of town. It is union made, by the way. Most progressive podcasts don't have union made merch because it's expensive to produce, but I'm a fucking real one. All right. Have I mentioned who is joining me? Oh my God, I'm so excited. None other than Linda Sarsour, a Palestinian-American activist who has been involved in so many incredible fights for justice, democracy, and now rejecting APAC. So Linda is kind of, look, she's not much older, but damn, she's a mentor. She is smart as hell, and I have been thinking of her this entire time since, of course, this latest attack on Gaza. So we're going to get into all the things with Linda. And then I'm so honored to be joined by Annie Valoria Winnett, who is a grad student at UCLA, who is part of the grad student or the UAW local strike over the treatment of Palestine protesters, not just on UCLA, but on many, many campuses across California. They are striking, citing basically mistreatment, labor mistreatment from administrators to them. And so I'm very excited to have her on to explain this movement and how they're continuing to hold the people who allowed them to be brutalized back in the spring accountable. So before we move any further, let me just explain to you really, really quickly. This is only a third of the Bitchuation Room. There's 2 other parts. We have a Friday show now, but also we have a Wednesday show, which is a bonus bish, which you can watch free, YouTube and Twitch, youtube.com/FrannyFio. But if you want to listen to it back or you want to watch it back, you got to become a patron. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you go to do that. Just good extra stories that didn't make it in. Tomorrow, all I can say is Jan Sixers have a podcast. I don't know how it happened. A lot of it's inaudible, but the Jan Sixers have now, who are arrested, currently in prison, have started a podcast, and they're getting woke. Oh, they're getting woke. It's very funny. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room, people. And without further ado, why don't we get into it, guys? Let's Ask the world, the world, what are you bitching about? So, the theme of this show for the last few weeks, months has very much been about how Democrats are using, or really everybody, Democrats, Republicans, elitists, people with money, um, are using Israel and its assault on Gaza, this ongoing genocide, as a cover for all the awful things they already want to do, insofar as destroying higher learning and higher education, to dismantling union protections and union rights. We've talked about all the money that APAC is receiving from Republican donors, billionaire donors who are like, oh, great, a new PAC to donate to. This is perfect. Oh, with the added cover of supposedly fighting anti-Semitism. Love it. So that's been the theme. Like, how in the hell are Democrats allowing this to happen? And it's come to every issue now. And now it has finally come for the COVID mask. That's right, people. The masks are no longer protected. Remember, the thing that Democrats, supposedly Democrats, because Republicans made the issue of keeping safe such a partisan issue, supposedly the issue we all care about, right? You know, if you're a blue state, you're blue city, you got mask requirements, you encourage people to keep themselves and others safe. It's a neighborly thing to do, the camaraderie thing to do. I don't know what I'm saying. You know what I mean? The masks. Everyone loves the masks. And then it became this whole like weaponizing against the right. Are you an anti-masker? Are you pro-mask? Antima, as I used to say. But suddenly, Palestine undid this for them. So now Democratic mayors like Kathy Hochul in New York, and now sadly like Karen Bass in Los Angeles, are saying, maybe we should ban masks. Kathy Hochul's even saying we should ban them on subways. And this is specifically in response to what? Palestine protesters who want the genocide to stop. And so all the things that the right couldn't do, now with this cover of, a mass murdering state that somehow we still have to keep supporting, they can do it. So here's Kathy Hochul.
We will not tolerate individuals using masks to evade responsible for criminal or threatening behavior. My team is working on a solution, but on a subway, people should not be able to hide behind a mask to commit crimes. I've spoken to Mayor Adams, who's been outspoken on this issue, with the MTA, with local law enforcement, and beginning conversations with the legislature, since this takes legislative action, which we're considering.
All it took was Palestine to make these Democrats anti-maskers, to commit crimes, of trying to not breathe other people's COVID air. Just like, this is the subway we're talking about. You already have a problem with ridership. Now you want to ban masks? Are you kidding me? And this all stems from some protest that happened on a subway that, of course, got elevated up to the level of, excuse me, Kathy, you are the governor, not the mayor. I misspoke earlier. That gets elevated up to the statewide level. It's insane. And now Karen Bass, off the back of another protest, is saying the exact same thing, because Palestine protesters dare to cover their faces. Why? Well, they often get doxxed and followed and identified. Does that happen to the pro-Israel, the Zionist protesters? Nah. Here's Karen Bass.
We also will be contacting and having a conversation with our city attorney, Heidi Feldstein Soto, to talk about several things that we need to examine. For example, permits for protests, the idea of people wearing masks at protests, and establishing clear lines of demarcation between what is legal and what is not.
So if you're listening as a podcast, that's thanks to, I believe, Hotspot on Twitter, who put together a mashup at the end there of all the times that Karen Bass said, hey, wear a mask, keep yourself safe, wear a mask. Oh, but what if it's got like a keffiyeh print on it? Oh, no. Then it's terrorism, clearly. So it's just, again, if this is a small side story in the broader story here around Israel and Gaza and Palestine. But man, how revelatory. Man, how weak are these Democrats? You can't stand behind keeping people safe. What if there's another pandemic outbreak? What if there's another pandemic? The avian flu is making its rounds. What happens then? Well, I don't know. Some of those people trying to not get avian flu could believe that we need a ceasefire. So, gotta outlaw masks. Can you imagine? Obviously, Eric Adams is like, hell yeah. More reasons to put cops in subways to make sure people don't have masks on. Love it. It's so sad and so pathetic. And we will see if they go forward with it. But right now, before I bring in my guest, let me tell you guys about a little product I like to call the sleep gummy, guys. So, as y'all know, my brain cannot shut off. So I am unable to just tell myself to go night night because I'm just spinning, nonstop spin, nonstop worry late at night when I need to be in bed because I got to get up at the crack of dawn for my baby. So I rely on Sunset Lake CBD's sleep gummies. They've got CBD, CBN, ooh, and melatonin. They're slow release. I love them. I also, dude, legit, I'm feeling the focus gummies. This morning I had 2 focus gummies. And they have cordyceps and lion's mane in them, which is just already good for like brain activity. I don't know. Someone tell me what lion's mane does, but rawr, I'm feeling good. They've helped me with like headaches. If you get like early morning brain fog or headaches and stuff like that, the focus gummies from Sunset Lake CBD are wonderful. And sunsetlakecbd.com. God damn it, where's my banner? Coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA. I dare you to try them. And again, 20% off with that code. So there's no reason not to. Thank you so much to Sunset Lake. They're a great organization and you should support them. And with that, she's a Palestinian-American organizer, strategist, and author of We're in This Together and We're Not Here to Be Bystanders, which is such a great book. Please welcome Linda Sarsour. Hey, Linda.
Hello, friend.
Hello, friend. It has been so long, and I caught you at mobilizing mode. Like you're always a little bit in mobilizing mode, but it has been almost 9 months of a nonstop, attack, ethnic cleansing on the people of Gaza, and my mind has gone to you as someone who I admire, but also someone who is Palestinian American and who has been targeted specifically for being so. And who is proudly that. But there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but my initial, just check-in is I know it's been so hard to reflect on this as it's ongoing. Mm-hmm. So how have you been? What are you doing to fight the sadness of this moment?
I appreciate that, Fran. If you've noticed in many other times that I've organized in the last almost over 2 decades, I've been a very vocal voice. I've been outside, I've been on all the podcasts, I've been talking to the media, but there's something different this time. I find myself in perpetual grief, in perpetual, visceral pain in my heart. I don't know how to articulate to people more than what they're already seeing with their own eyes. I am having a hard time being in space trying to humanize a people who are just literally please, we just want freedom like everybody else. So I've had a very different personal kind of experience this last 9 months in ways that I haven't had before, although I've always organized around issues impacting marginalized people, whether it be Muslim Americans, whether it be in the racial justice movements, immigrant rights movements that I've been a part of. But there's something different for me this time. So I've kind of started coming out a little bit, say, of my grief shell that I've been, that is literally on a daily basis. I cannot unsee the things that I have seen in the last 9 months. Not only can I not unsee them, but I cannot find any rationale in my mind anywhere that tells me that this is something that should be happening 9 months later and that there's no one out there that can stop this genocide.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all feeling that way, but of course it's so much more personal when you know people involved, you know the Palestinian-American community here. Save the Children, which notoriously anti-Semitic outlet. Save the Children is now saying, 20,000 children might be missing in Gaza. 20,000. Now, a lot of them are hopefully alive, just have not been located. They're just alone, right? I mean, I'm like, now as a mom, that, it's unbearable. It's unbearable. Obviously 16,000 children, I think the latest estimates have been killed. That's in the grand almost 40,000 again, which is a low number. And I think what you're saying is so right on. we've seen Joe Biden, which is a guy who very interestingly, in a lot of other policy positions, is receptive to criticism. 4 years ago when he was campaigning and the Bernie movement was like, please do this, do that, like talk about climate change, da, da, da. Like, he was receptive to some of that. And on this issue, no matter the pressure, he is a zero. I'm not saying that his administration is not receptive. We now know today, just recently, actually a Palestinian-American Air Forceman who had been in the Air Force for 22 years resigned in protest. 3 days ago, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Israeli-Palestinian Affairs at the State Department resigned. That's on top of other State Department official resignations. Alongside like Jewish officials in all different aspects. I think we're up to like about a dozen resignations now. There have been dissent cables from the State Department to, Anthony Blinken about, we don't agree with this policy. What is going on? Can't we use our leverage? We're facing the fact that Biden is just a committed Zionist, man. And like, I don't know, just give me your thoughts on that, because it is, after all this many months of protest, it's like the guy is still so deaf to it and so incapable of doing anything about it.
And that's the most outrageous part of it all, Fran. It's like, this is not a moment where we're getting secondhand information. Whether it be Joe Biden or any senior level officials, they can see what we see with their own eyes. They know that there is mass slaughter that is happening in Gaza. To your point about the Save the Children UK report around the 20,000 missing children, that's not including the 15,000 that we already know have been slaughtered at the hands of the state of Israel. I have heard stories of people who say they walk down the streets of Gaza amongst the rubble and can still hear the cries of children under the rubble who have not been able to be rescued. We have a president who has lied on multiple occasions. He lied and said that he saw pictures of beheaded babies that he had never seen, that the White House had to walk back. This is a man who has questioned the death toll in Gaza. This is a man who has sold weapons deals to Israel during a genocide, an administration that has advocated for more funding to Israel during a genocide, and also an administration that is now in the position with Congress literally rolling out the red carpet for Benjamin Netanyahu to do a joint address to Congress. They addressed a man with a literal arrest warrant from the ICC, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, and both Democratic leadership and Republican leadership signed the same letter to invite a war criminal to address our Congress during a genocide. I'm not saying that he should ever be welcome, but for God's sakes, during an active genocide where this man has humiliated our president and our administration multiple times, you are rolling the red carpet out for him. So again, the outrageousness, the callousness of it all, the double downing on it all, with the backdrop of bloodshed. I'm talking about body parts everywhere. I mean, there are videos coming out today from Gaza of literal full-fledged fires that have erupted, similar to the tent massacre that we saw in Rafah a few weeks ago. I literally see a table with literal body parts. People are picking up people's hands. Some are small hands, children's hands. Some of them are adult hands, pieces of people's feet. We're talking about things that are beyond even description that I can say here. And we still don't have an administration that is doing what we know they have in their power to get us a ceasefire. And to be really quite frank, the reason why I'm still in this place where I'm literally going out of my mind, because we're also human, Fran, and we have our own mental health issues that we have to take care of. I'm trying to understand how 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. 60% of people, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, want a ceasefire. Who are you talking to? Who is Joe Biden talking to or trying to appease when the majority of your party, regardless of where they are telling you we want a ceasefire?
Yeah, and not only that, for an extreme right-wing government, which is the government of Israel now, and I mean, it is a very, very right-wing political, like the Knesset is incredibly far right. But you know what I'm saying? It's like everyone's pointed this out. A guy who doesn't even want him to be president. Who is literally, I think the question is, who is this for? And to your point about the kinds of things that we have seen and the horrors that the Palestinian people have been subjected to, I've never seen gaslighting like this. And I do think there is the silver lining of the gaslighting that we've all seen around this issue for so many years, that has become mainstream, meaning everyone can see. You don't have to be an expert on this issue to understand how much gaslighting is happening right now. When you're told about beheaded babies, but there's no evidence. Meanwhile, there are children with their eyeballs popping out. There's children. I mean, we all have those images, headless, like as you said, after the attack on the refugee camp in Rafah. And every single time, okay, it's a hospital. Oh no, outrage. Oh, that was a mistake. But then it happens 5 more times. Oh, a refugee camp. Oh, that was a mistake. That's terrible. Jabalia, terrible. But then it happens 10 more times. There is no red line here. There's never been a red line here. And like, I keep on saying this because I'm not one who like, America has to be strong on the international scale. But I'm like, America needs to be a lot stronger on the international level than we are right now. And that means, obviously reining it in when our ally has gone buck wild.
That's right.
And I guess here's the final thing I was going to say is every single moment, we are told about, the child. I believe there's a few, but we're told about the stories of the children killed on October 7th, the Israeli children. And we're, their lives and their stories are sort of trotted out before us. Yet every week at this point, on October 7th happens to the people of Gaza. Every week. That's, if you do the math, it's weekly. That's how 12,000 people die. And how many children die. And it's like, if we emerge out of this genocide just globally with one understanding, it is we must humanize Muslims in this world and Palestinians specifically. I mean, it has been the most disturbing reminder of how dehumanized Palestinian life is and Palestinians are, and how colonial the mentality is when it comes to clearing them out in order to get to the next phase of selling real estate, which we'll talk about in a second.
I mean, the language is important, Francesca, and that's one of the things that has been demonstrated over the course of the last 9 months when it comes to Palestinians. Palestinian children die, and other children get killed. The ways in which we talk about, things like what constitutes a Palestinian child, right? So a lot of times we will talk about, quote unquote, prisoners in Israeli prisons. We're sometimes talking about children who are 12 years old and 14 years old. And we will go across lengths to call young women. And then you look at the photo of who the young women they're talking about is, and we're talking about like 8-year-old girls, right? This similar kind of alignment and narrative around how we talk about young Black people in America, right? We will never talk about someone like a Mike Brown and say he was a child. He had just literally graduated high school.
Yep.
That this idea that we talk about a Tamir Rice was 12 years old. We literally were talking about him in the media as if he was some full-fledged grown young man, and he was not. He was a baby. He was someone's baby. And it's similarly, again, we see 2 different sets of languages that are applied to 2 different sets of people. And we have allowed it to happen over and over and over again, which if manufactures consent for things like massacres, right? When the idea is to basically make the claim that these people are human shields, that they're not actual human beings deserving of life. Somehow they became a weapon of war, or this idea that it's their fault that they live in Gaza and that Hamas is their leadership. And
Right.
which we allow this over and over again to continue. And it often comes from the highest echelons of power. And again, it's one of the reasons why I don't know what to say. What am I supposed to say to people? Am I supposed to say to you that my child is just as worthy as any child in this world, that those children in Gaza deserve their dreams and aspirations, that they should be able to fly kites, not in some cloudy, around drones, but they should be able to go to the beach and swim and not have to be worried about either getting slaughtered or aid dropping from the sky that crushes children in Gaza right now. I mean, the amount of outrageousness that I have seen, it has literally put me at a loss of words. I don't have words for what we are witnessing. And for 9 months, friend, like this is not something that happened last week and we're looking at this horrific week that we're experiencing. We're 9 months into a full-fledged live streamed genocide paid for by the United States of America. The state of Israel is not capable of maintaining an occupation and maintaining a siege on Gaza and engaging in this type of mass slaughter without the aiding and abetting coming from the United States government.
Yeah, 100%. And I wanted to pivot to just this week, there was another hate crime against Palestinian-American family, this time outside of Dallas in Texas. A drunk woman, which is literally no excuse, just a footnote, is at a public pool and is verbally harassing a Palestinian family. The mother's two kids are in the pool, and this crazed woman, tries to drag the kids to the deep end to drown them. And one kid gets away. The other 3-year-old she's holding her down underwater. She, nearly drowns. A man helps rescue both daughters. Obviously, this woman is arrested. They're considering charging her with hate crimes. But the mother says her daughters are traumatized. They don't want to go outside. They're afraid that this scary drunk lady is gonna try to drown them again. And that, your heart breaks, right? My heart breaks because I'm like, this is the fish rotting from the head down. This is the behavior of the United States government on an international level. Again, denialism coming from the White House that is signaling to everyday racists that they can just do this kind of thing. And again, we talk about Wadia, in Chicago, who was a 6-year-old who was stabbed by his neighbor. It's on and on and on. And I just want to name this because it is something you have, threats of violence is something you have suffered as well. And also, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to sort of pivot this into speaking about a Donald Trump, right? A Trump 2.0, because I think it is really important to remember some of the stuff that you faced down, and I've faced a fraction of it. Some MAGA get really mad at me these days. Happened because of Trump being elected, the Muslim ban and all of this. So, and Biden, because Biden's really good at it, it just continues Trump's policies. This is just let's keep going with it. I guess just maybe maybe some reflections on how this is impacting the, Muslim American community and Palestinian American community, especially when even organizations like CARE, right, get targeted simply for investigating these things.
That's right. When I heard the story about these children at a pool, I was triggered by at level 1,000. I couldn't believe that even with the amount of anti-Palestinian sentiment that is out there, anti-Arab and anti-Muslim, because bigots are idiots. They think we're all the same thing. They think Palestinians are Muslims and Muslims are Palestinians. So it's this weird, ignorant, bigotry that they've held for, as decades, particularly around the horrific attacks of 9/11. But imagine you're so hateful that you were willing to kill children. This is what we're talking about here. If this woman is willing to do that here, this is exactly the same sentiment of the Israeli government, who does not care for children, for adults, for women, men, grandpa, grandma. They don't care. And it's to your point, we started with Wadia al-Fayoumi, who's a 6-year-old boy who got literally stabbed by his neighbor, somebody that knew him and knew his mother. His mother was, and so he died. And then his mother was, as you know, also stabbed. And she now has to live and be alive, not only with her wounds of the stabbing, but also of losing her child. Same thing for the father and all those that loved Wadia. Then we had the incident of the 3 boys, as the young men who were wearing keffiyehs and were also in Vermont. And there's one literally in a wheelchair, he is paralyzed. He's going to live with that for the rest of his life, and his friends who were with him and witnessed that happen. But it's also the ones in between, Fran, that you don't hear about, right? Or the things that don't get to be viral, like the assaults on Palestinian women, or women wearing hijab walking into coffee shops and people speaking to them or assaulting or harassing them, people in things as simple as a little parking lot fight over parking, right? At a supermarket, that ends up engaging in extreme Islamophobia and extreme anti-Palestinian sentiment, where people start referencing Gaza when they want to even have a normal argument about something. And oftentimes it could end up into some sort of assault. And then we are also watching the violence against protesters that you've seen at campuses across the country. When I was watching what was happening at UCLA, and I watched the literally these people showed up with little, their clubs, and they're just beating people in the street in this encampment. And I'm like, hello, friends, hello, is this not violence to you? Is this not okay? this targeting of pro-Palestinian anybody or anyone you think is Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, it is outrageous, and it's all over the place. It's everywhere. It's in the way that Palestinians and pro-Palestinians are being trolled in the internet spaces, right? Whether you're being trolled at your college campuses, the way they show up to try to silence our voices across this country, like this idea that let us say what we got to say. You're saying what you got to say. Let me say what I got to say. Let the students say what they got to say. But this idea of using every resource available to silence the voices, taking people's degrees away from them.
Yep.
This is also a form of violence against our people. Like this idea that we are being further suppressed to the margins. I mean, Muslims already were on the margins. And you know this from the horrific attacks of 9/11. Yes, of course, there was heightened and increased hate crimes after Donald Trump, but I'm not laying that all at the doorsteps of Donald Trump. We've seen hate crimes against Muslim Americans and Muslim immigrants and those perceived to be Muslim since, I mean, people can probably take it way back, but I'll take it back from my experience as a product of the post 9/11 America.
Right.
I've been watching this happen for 20 years. I have seen people killed. I have seen Sikh Americans who wear turbans who've been mistaken for Muslims being also harassed and killed as well. We have seen vandalisms of mosques. We have seen the burning down of mosques. I mean, we can show examples. You've seen the mosque controversies, banning Muslims from building religious institutions. We've seen the Islamophobia industry at the highest echelons. And because people didn't hold them accountable and thought they were fringe, they all went to work for Donald Trump. So remember, those people were before Donald Trump. But because people in our movements and in our country didn't stop these people, didn't hold them accountable, did not expose them when it was necessary, these people were no longer fringe. They went from the fringe to the most powerful place in the world, and that is the White House. And so that's the kind of dangers that we allow to happen in this country. And then once a Donald Trump comes along, all Donald Trump does is he creates a comfortable environment for them, right? He's not they were already there without a Donald Trump. He just gives them a little bit more space to do what it is that they want to do.
Let's do the thought exercise. This genocide happens under Donald Trump. What do liberals do? What do liberal Zionists do?
Listen, this is a major conversation, friend, that I've had multiple times, especially convincing people early on around ceasefire. No one can deny and look me in the eye and tell me that if right now, today, Donald Trump was the president of the United States of America, the American people would be on the streets in the millions. And they would literally be making the comparison that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are two peas in the same pod. These are two right-wing governments that don't care about peace. These are people who don't care about the sanctity of life. And they will go on, and it will be this all anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. And now, because it's not Trump, right? It's not Trump. There are people that will literally fold themselves into a pretzel to try to understand or to try to defend the president of the United States right now and say, he's doing everything that he can.
Yeah.
You know, Joe Biden is not Donald Trump. And then you tell them, okay, and they say Donald Trump is the worst thing that could ever happen. And listen, you don't got to explain, Fran, to any Muslims about how bad Donald Trump is. And I'm outraged by anyone that tries to make that argument with us, because if anybody knows, trust me, we know. And you know damn sure well I know. But this idea that we're trying to explain to Arab American Muslim voters, Palestinian voters, that there's something worse than genocide.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you have that argument, and that this idea that even in this election, that instead of having a conversation about ending a genocide, we're having a conversation about an election, like who gets to be the president. No, what about let's end the genocide? That's what the people want. They want to stop to bloodshed. And that bull right now, Fran, is not in the court of Donald Trump. That bull is in the court of Joe Biden, and he needs to take that responsibility.
Absolutely. And I've said this many, many times, and this has nothing to do with whether you think Joe Biden is better or worse than Donald Trump, obviously. And this is what I appreciate about you, Linda, is that you can say that, but also I know you're not someone who puts Trump and Biden on an equal footing. You're like, no, but Biden is the president now, and we need a ceasefire. I mean, months and months and months ago. And every single day, look, Gazans are facing imminent famine. We're talking about middle of July. It's full-blown famine. So every single hour counts on this. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that about you, because I also feel like, again, and I've heard you on other shows, but I also want to check in. You know, you did a lot of work in 2020, basically being like, we're voting for our enemy with Donald Trump. We're voting for our enemy with Joe Biden. Let's get a better adversary in there so we can hit him and push him. And actually, it worked on some issues. It definitely has been harder on this issue. But I guess I'm like, everyone, I think a lot of liberals are like, but are you going to vote for Biden? Are you going to, that's all they want from you. And you're like, hey, we want to stop death. And all they want to do is like, make sure that you're voting for Biden. So I guess just how are you positioning yourself right now in this electoral cycle, the beginning of which, or are you not even like, you're just like, no, ceasefire today, ceasefire yesterday, ceasefire tomorrow? Like where are you positioning yourself in this?
I position myself in two places, Fran. I'm in the urgency of now, and that is a ceasefire. We need to stop the bloodshed of the Palestinian people. There is no way around that right now. We have to do that. I'm in this place of demanding a weapons embargo on Israel. We have to end military aid to Israel. And I think more people are leaning into that. We saw statements from the AME Church, the longest standing Black church in the United States of America, saying end military aid to Israel. We saw the NAACP come out about arms embargo. And the NAACP has not, in fact, been a long-standing, radical pro-Palestinian organization in its entire history. So we're starting to see that sentiment become a little bit more mainstream. So for me in this electoral season, what I've been telling people, because everybody plays a different role, Fran, and I want to make it very clear for the folks that listen here. There are protesters. There are people that do disruption. There are civil disobedience type folks. There are political people who are working the political apparatus. There's always going to be people that play different roles. So I don't want anyone to try to compare that, it's the people doing the political stuff are better or smarter than the people doing the, protesting or whatnot. Everybody's playing their role right now. Here's my position. I'm a down ballot a person right now, and that's where I focus my energy. At the end of the day, if you don't have the right people in Congress, if you don't have the right people in the state legislature, why do we have to wake up every 4 years with the same conversation about who's the president of the United States of America? Right now, most of the most outrageous things that are happening in this world right now, right, are happening in our state legislators. That is where all of the reproductive rights fights are happening, where the anti-DEI, this is the anti-immigrant legislation, like it's happening in our state legislators. So this idea that everyone wants to have this every 4-year conversation about who the president is. Look, Joe Biden's been the president for 3 years already, right? Or in his 4th year now. So the question becomes, what did Joe Biden do for us in the last 4 years? And that's the question people are going to ask themselves right now as we move into a November election. So for me, I'm positioning myself like my people right now. They are raw. They are sensitive. Do not patronize them. Do not try to start a blame game on Arab American voters in Michigan. These people are watching bloodshed of their people. The people of Michigan are from Lebanon. They are from Yemen. They are Palestinians. They do not want to hear you come to them and tell them how Donald Trump is worse. They want to hear you say to them, I see you. I hear you. The president has power now. We are going to stand with you and demand that this president get us a ceasefire ASAP. And they also will vote down the ballot. There are people, Muslim Americans have stood up for people like Jamal Bowman and the Cori Bushes of the world, who has a primary coming up, the Rashidas and the Ilhans and the Ayanas and the others, who, by the way, imperfect, all of them, every single one of them. We could have a whole show about things that we may not agree with them on sometimes, and votes that they take we don't agree on. But in generally speaking, they are the most loudest advocates for Palestine, and especially been champions on ceasefire. So my position is I'm a down ballot candidate. Don't forfeit your right to vote. Continue to participate in democracy. Support those who support our communities. And remember that we are in this together, that Palestine is a core and central issue for many of us. But I also care about other marginalized people. So we're going to have to kind of move in that direction. But I definitely am not someone you have to worry about that's going to be like, we're all going down the street to vote for Donald Trump.
Of course.
So please, anyone having a debate with any of our voters, please do not make the debate that Donald Trump is bad, because right now the worst thing that they see is a genocide.
Absolutely. I lastly, because you've been doing work with Reject APAC, which is a new formation, a new coalition that has come together because in response to the amount, first of all, we're all talking about APAC now. People didn't really know what APAC was before it started to, but now everyone's talking about it, and the Israeli lobby funneling tons of money, again, thanks to a lot of Republican donors, funneling them into trying to defeat folks who are calling for ceasefire, like Representative Jamal Bowman, who is, again, facing re-election today. Maybe just tell me about, like, if someone like Jamal gets booted with, 20 million from APAC, 15, 20 million here, one of the most expensive races in American history. If he is successfully, first of all, if he wins, what does that mean? And if he doesn't, what does that mean?
if Jamal Bowman wins this New York 16 congressional primary, it would be probably the most important thing that has happened in politics in the last maybe 2 decades. It will be one of those moments we will look back when we're like 80 years old, because it will be an absolute miracle. And I still have hope because I am a person that does believe in miracles, but it will be a miracle because we are going up against $20+ million of negative ads every day, 24 hours a day for the many last weeks. I mean, this is not a joke. Mailers. I mean, I went to the Bronx. I've been to Yonkers. If you see the amount of negative information about Jamal Bowman, not actually just about Israel, Palestine, there is a lot of misinformation about his votes on infrastructure and things that he's done or not done for his district. I mean, they took out all angles on Jamal Bowman, and they're putting all the money they have on him. It's literally like one of that race, and they're putting their money on this one guy. Like, you are going to lose. Like, that's the bet. The bet is Jamal Bowman is going to lose. So if he wins, it will be a miracle. And that's not to say that people aren't doing everything that they can, but the question becomes, can we truly compete with $22 million? And so their unions are out, the different groups, as you know, Jews for Jamal, there's our Muslim groups that are out there, Black groups, young people, elders, union members, you name it, they're outside knocking the doors, doing the phone banking, people from across the country. But again, we're going up against $20 million right now.
Yeah.
If he loses, of course, no matter what anyone tries to explain to me, it's going to hurt and it's going to be disappointing to a lot of people. But what I will tell people, that is not an indication of our movements. It's not an indication of our strength. This will be an embarrassment for the Democratic Party. You, the Democratic Party, allowed for Republican billionaires and APAC to buy a Democratic primary. Remember, we are not in a general election here. We are in a Democratic primary. So the fact that the GOP thought that they could use their money to intervene in a Democratic primary just shows us the deficiency of the Democratic Party. And that is going to be what happens if someone like Jamal Bowman. So I don't want anyone to think that we're going to walk away crying and saying, we wish we could have done more. We did everything that we can. We did it the way that it's supposed to be done. Knock doors, phone bank, do the true legwork of what it means to get people to participate in democracy. Jamal Bowman did not spend $20 million to go and try to win an election. We did not try to buy an election. We tried to participate in a democracy the way that it should be working for all people.
That's so brilliantly said, as always. And I also think that, what we will never allow Democrats to rewrite, should they have the, establishment Dems successfully oust a 2-time incumbent, is that it was APAC and Republican money that got them this. That's right. And who knows where Latimer stands on all of, the Biden agenda. We know that some actually the most pro-Israel, pro-genocide Zionist members of the, Democratic Congress and the caucus are actually the ones who've been holding up Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, right? He even moved away from the Build Back Better agenda. I'm talking like, Josh Gottheimer, for example, right? And others who, again, have actually been openly Islamophobic since October 7th. But it's just it's amazing to me. They're going to be like, well, it's the voters have turned away from Medicare for all and a Green New Deal and, police reform. And it's like, no, they didn't. You just allowed a bunch of Republican money to oust a wonderful progressive congressman. Anyway, I'm gonna let you go, Linda, because you got work to do, you got calls to make, and people to inspire, and you inspire us all the time. Everybody, please read Linda's books. Again, we're in this together, and we're not here to be bystanders. I love them. I love the way you chart a path of committing yourself to the movement, and how that can be done. And you should not be alone on this. And there are more Lindas coming up behind this one. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Fran.
All right. Take very good care. And thank you guys so much. There's so much we wanted to talk about, but we have to bring in my next guest. Let me properly tee up this bio. She's a graduate student at UCLA and a member of UAW Local 41 that's currently in rolling strikes over the treatment of protesters on campus. Please welcome Annie Valoria Winnett. Annie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thanks for chilling and waiting. There's so much to cover, but I was really excited to bring you on because you we saw everything that happened at UCLA. We saw some of the violence, the hours that protesters were subject to, Zionist mobs effectively. And it was like, where the fuck are where's the cops? Where are the administrators? And a large part, this mass movement was allowed to be brutalized. And grad students are saying, no, there needs to be some atonement for this behavior. Tell me about UAW Local 481. Who do you all represent, and why did you guys decide to take action?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just start with the last part. We had to take action because we had no other choice. Local 4811 represents 48,000 academic workers at the University of California systems across 11 campuses, from academic researchers, postdocs, graduate student workers like myself, and also undergraduate workers. And we come together on the basis of wanting to fight for better working conditions. And one of the largest university systems, the largest employer, the largest landlord of the state of California, we come together to deploy our power to fight for what we know is ours, right? Like this university run because of our labor.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, we all had to witness, and for many of us firsthand, our university very clearly taking a side when it comes to protests and free speech on our campus. While there are many of us who have taken to the streets, demanding an end to these genocides, it also had to happen in our campus. We have seen the largest anti-war movement across campuses in the US, and rightly so. And as we see that, the university's response was just shameful to watch. But I think as organizers in labor who have many times been at a dispute with the university fighting over our rights, we have seen them act in ways that always oppose the way that they talk about themselves in their websites, in their statements, right? If they stand for free inquiry, for free speech, for diversity, that's not what we saw in their actions. Mm-hmm. And nobody better equipped to respond to this moment than us, a labor union that is organized, that has been fighting for many years, and that understands that this is a crucial fight for our own existence. Like, how is a union supposed to exist if we don't have the right to protest on our own campus? It doesn't make any sense,
Right. And if students are being brutalized or something is being misrepresented, and actually moreover, the amount of censorship and the policing that I'm sure grad students who, are hoping to one day be professors, I mean, that line that is coming down on you all of, if you speak about Palestine, if you make space, let's say, I don't know, in a session or anything, if you discuss what is happening, that is anti-Semitic, right? Mm-hmm. That has been labeled, you will be doxxed, you will be reprimanded, you could be doxxed by, some very scary groups, and your university won't protect you either academically or physically from those kinds of attacks, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Have you heard? And I think, tell me, have you heard any of that from your membership? Like, I'm scared to touch this, I don't know what to do, or someone tried to out me or whatever for speaking on Palestine?
On a regular basis. Yeah, on a regular basis. And I think we understand that the perpetrators of violence, of physical violence in our campus, have been oftentimes outside agitators, but they get to do that because the university does not take any action, and in fact presents this picture that there were two sides peacefully protesting, and then some provocation started from, let's say, the encampment or from our workers. That's not true. That's a lie. That's inaccurate. And I think what's scariest about this moment is that I guess the latest update on our strike is that the university has been contesting the legality of our ability to take this kind of collective action from the very first day that we authorized the strike through a vote. And they have been saying that it's illegal, sending out misinformation to our coworkers, saying that engaging collective action like this strike is illegal. It's put this atmosphere of fear, of retaliation. They don't have to say they stand against Palestine or against our ability to save for Palestine. They just have to say, we do not condone your ability to engage in this strike for all of our members to understand that they're not going to be protected in the classroom or even outside of the classroom when they have these conversations.
It's perfect. That's incredible. It's like, no, you can't do it. Like, what do we just did? Yeah. And actually the update, a Schwarzenegger appointee, Judge Randall Sherman, issued a restraining order against UAW 4811. Sorry, I misspoke, which is just like wild.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like just wild. And I know the UAW is vast, and there's actually some incredible, pro ceasefire locals and whatnot. But again, this is liberal ass. I mean, he is from the Orange County, but like, liberal ass California. And it's like, even the judicial system is weighing in here to silence you all. Can you just explain what the, maybe respond to that, but also like, what's the strike looking like? Is it I think it's rolling strikes, and how is it manifesting?
Yeah. So we are in a really interesting moment right now. So I guess I can give some context to this court. It is not their place to weigh on the legality of our strike. There is a body that is empowered to look after this kind of labor dispute, the Public Employment Relations Board. And that's the body where the university went twice asking to join our strike, to pause our strike. Both times they were denied. Both times this body sided with us, with the workers. And so what the university did, what happened in Orange County at that judge has no business whatsoever at all issuing that restraining order against us, but they did. That in itself is a huge violation of our rights. That in itself is historic because it shows universities willing to break every law in the book under the name of legality to stop a strike. So
I think it's just ironic because, effectively a strike is a restraining order against yourself. You're like, we're already doing it. we're staying away from campus and we're not teaching. And that's effectively a restraining order. So, okay, judge.
Yeah. And it is just bizarre because the basis of it is you have a no strike clause in your contract, so you can't strike, but the contract also gives us the right to take this kind of action when severe and grave violations happen. Like the world saw, like it's not just an isolated event, the entire world saw the live stream of the brutality that we endure in our campus.
Yeah.
But effectively, it means that we actually had to pause our strike. Effectively, it means that we had to tell workers that engaging further in strike activity would potentially jeopardize their ability to stay employed, their ability to have any protections, any legal protections. Like, tell me how many more crimes has the university had committed in the last few weeks? I mean, the list is endless, but it doesn't mean that the fight stops. It just means that we're getting ready to enter this battle, this sustained battle, because we know we have the right to say free Palestine.
Yeah.
They're not going to restrain that right. So we have to fight for that.
I wanted to take you through a specific story that happened here in LA if you have a moment. But before I do, I wanted to ask you quickly about I'm blanking. I will remember it, but I blanked because I got distracted. But let's talk about this. Okay, so over the weekend, on Sunday, there was a protest outside of a synagogue. And why? Well, the synagogue was holding a sale for, or at least I believe it was a like promotional real estate event by an organization, by an organization called My Home in Israel Real Estate. Now, the company had done this before back in New Jersey, and effectively, this is selling Palestinian land that has been gobbled up by Israel in the West Bank. And just to give you a sense, this was back from the New Jersey event. And most of the events, My Home in Israel brought along to showcase available properties in Israel and the Palestinian territories. It occupies multiple units in a building near Givat Hamotos in East Jerusalem, again, an occupied city, townhouses near Ariel University in the heart of the West Bank, and a 5-bedroom villa with a pool in the luxury enclave of Efrat, south of Bethlehem. So this is plain West Bank, contested territory, occupied city, East Jerusalem, like just wild shit. Now, this was protested by a number of groups here in Los Angeles. And then, as happens, there were counter demonstrators, there were Zionist demonstrators, and violence broke out. There was scuffles and whatnot. And of course, then Joe Biden issues a statement like this: I am appalled by the scenes outside of the Adas Torah synagogue in Los Angeles. Intimidating Jewish congregants is dangerous, unconscionable, anti-Semitic, and un-American. Americans have a right to peaceful protest, but blocking access to a house of worship is never acceptable. And this was Karen Bass did a similar statement. Gavin Newsom issued a similar statement. Again, they are conflating the issue of selling stolen land with being anti-Semitic. Yes, it happened in a synagogue. But hey, here's my thing, is, Annie, that some of the protest, like, we don't really know what started the violence, but we kind of do know. There's many different videos. There's a lot of scuffle, but we also know that the UCLA Zionists who attacked the encampment that night, a lot of them have not actually been apprehended. In fact, I believe only one, if that, have been apprehended about the things that they did. Brutalizing people, spraying people with, tear gas, throwing firecrackers on them, all kinds of stuff. So I wonder, months later, who might be instigating some of these this violence at these protests? So I guess I just wanted to get your response to the way that these protests get twisted as anti-Semitic, but also what local law enforcement is even doing about some of those who are perpetrating this violence.
Yeah. I mean, I know from many people that actually were there on Sunday at this protest, that what they experienced, what they lived through when they were being attacked by hostile anti-Palestinian counter-organizers, if that's what you call them now, does not match the reality of what they're reading or they're seeing in media. I think the chant that goes, every time the media lies, a neighborhood in Gaza dies, could not be more correct right now. What happened was not simply protests that ended up in some kind of disagreement. Is that there was an agenda. There was a clear agenda of those who came to this counter protest to not allow a real conversation about what it is that was happening in there. Like you said, the land that was being sold, that was being auctioned, that was being presented is stolen land. Yeah. Of course, people have the right to protest that. And of course, the response that the police and Karen Bass, as they've talked about what happened, so they needed to send more police to control the situation. But that actually didn't happen for quite a while. It took quite a bit of time. And in that time, more people, more protesters, more Palestinian supporters were attacked.
And journalists were attacked as well. I want to just, because it's funny, because I used to protest a lot. I used to live in New York, right? And it is interesting to see the response in New York versus LA. Why? Because New York is a police state. New York, you saw, who went in to go attack those Columbia students and drag them out of the occupation. It was all cops, right? When there's a protest, they have you cordoned off. They have the other guys cordoned off. Say what you will, but they very much have their little safe zones for the counter protesters and the protesters. LA, it seems, has taken a different tack, which is just let them fight. Let them fight, and we'll say it was the Hamas-loving Palestine protesters at the end of the day. And it's wild to me because it's so dangerous. I mean, people have been injured. Journalists I know on UCLA campus and elsewhere have been seriously injured by these kinds of things. And then, of course, and I just wanted to remind everyone, because we talked earlier about some of the resignations that have happened, but one of the Jewish administration officials, I believe she was in working on human rights in the Middle East. Her name is Lily Greenberg Call. And she says she resents making Jews the face of the American war machine. And I found that quote just so chilling and apt. And I think so many progressive Jews identify with that. And the fact that you have a synagogue who's doing this illegal sale and opening its doors to that, no one is protesting a synagogue. They are protesting what is happening inside of it, and how upsetting for so many Jews who are against this, that a place of worship of their faith would be, doing an event like this, right? And how dare you make Judaism the face of land grab, of this dispossession. But Annie, back to this, I remember the question, and I'll let you go because I know you've been here for a while, but UC Riverside did not pursue the same course of action as UCLA. There are some campuses in California in the UC system that just allow the encampments to just kind of exist. And we're like, okay, you could just do it. And I believe even the president came out and was like, we support the right of freedom of speech. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, even like saluted the organizers of this encampment. It was peaceful. It was mild. It was, you know, obviously they're taking the divestment demands very seriously. This could have all been so different on a campus like UCLA. What are your thoughts?
It could have been. And I think our vision for this as a statewide union, right? We represent workers not just in Los Angeles, but in all 11 campuses, is that we want to see that on a statewide level. We want the kinds of conversations that were happening perhaps in some campus, like you mentioned, we want that to happen for all workers, because ultimately we know that is the demand of the movement that we're standing in solidarity with, right?
Yeah.
So it shows that if there is political goodwill, this kind of conversation can happen. And it shows that our students also have what it takes, our workers, our students, everyone who is part of this movement, have what it takes to have these conversations, to negotiate. It's not a lack of willingness on the encampment's part. It's not a lack of willingness on the students' part.
Right.
It really is like a lack of political will from the university's perspective to do that across campuses and to settle this in a more systematic way, like we know they could.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right.
Oh, I'm just reminded of, you know, I'm someone who likes the phrase defund the police, because I feel like at least there's like a step. it's like there, you know, it's pretty clear what it's like. Move money out of these overfunded police departments. The same with these divestment movements that get called just Palestine demonstrators. Even I shorthand it. But no, these movements and these encampments have a specific goal. There are multiple demands, and one of them that unifies is divestment, disclosure. Let's see if you know, the UC system is invested in Israel and specifically in occupied territories, and then let's divest from those companies or places that might be making hand over fist money off of something like a genocide. And that's such an adult thing to do, right? Like, it's so, like you're saying, the negotiation and real discussion has always been available to these administrators. All they have to do is open their ears.
Yeah. Yeah. If they were not so busy taking their workers to court illegally, if they were not so busy unleashing the police force on their students, they would know we could be having a conversation. And I mean, listen, I think this demands, it's not a matter of time for them to go away. I think the will of our students and our workers is just going to increase.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier in the show, it's been months and months of us watching yet another genocide real time in our phones. And if it doesn't go away, we also don't go away, right? We also have a clear commitment to see this through. And I think it is a moment of reckoning for the student movement and the workers movement everywhere, that we actually need to be more organized and we need to be united so that we can continue to mount pressure, long-term pressure, like we know it took during the apartheid fight. And,
Yes.
you know, for South Africa, it didn't happen overnight. Divestment wasn't something that was accomplished after one action. It took mass action. It took all workers, all unions actually lending support, material support, meaningful support. But you're only going to get to that point where we're actually doing our part. And it is, regardless of the attacks, regardless of the fear, the intimidation, regardless of this many draconian ways to intimidate people to come out if they don't have to have, if they cannot wear a mask, for example, to be at a protest, who knows why, right? Like, all those tactics are not going to get in the way of a well-sustained movement if the movement is built based on unity, on organization, on infrastructure that is going to respond to the moment. And I think that now that we're aware of that, at least in my union, now that we have that very clear example why it's important to build our union to be able to fight, then we're going to have to fight. That's the obvious next step. And those demands are motivating our fight, definitely.
I mean, 48,000 union members is not nothing. It's a sizable chunk, and to get a yes vote on a strike is huge. And I'd like, lastly, was that difficult? Did that take a lot of, you know, discussion, and how did that come about?
It was definitely unlike anything that we have done before.
Right.
The previous strike that we went on in 2022, when we were settling a contract for all the units that we represented, sincerely, it took 3 years to plan. There was 3 years of sustained organizing, one-on-one conversations, and teaching a bunch of young workers who have likely never been in a union, likely never been on strike, to understand why that kind of sacrifice is needed for us to win. And we won. We won big. So we were coming into this fight with that experience of just 2 years ago, and with that experience of the infrastructure that we had built. But to have done that in the course of 2 weeks was a test, was a huge test. The fact that it happened and the fact that it passed so successfully just reaffirmed that we were correct in reading the moment, right? We were correct in reading the fact that this is a labor issue that we needed to fight, right? There's many ways this could have gone, but that the fact that within just days and with very little time to explain the full story, our coworkers already knew that what happened was messed up and they were going to let that be the situation anymore. And so I think it's just a testament of the goodwill of workers when they're organized, when they're coming together. And it is also a testament that it is true that workers stand for peace and not the war machine. Like it was basically polling our coworkers, right? And like, which side are we on? And the side that we chose was the side of not letting the university speak for us or misrepresent us in their pursuit of violence, in their pursuit of excusing this genocide.
And I think it's massive. I mean, honestly, like we don't cover enough union fights on this show, but this one I think is massive because of how much the far right and how much the militarist, the military industrial complex and I would say the Zionist lobby is hell bent on undermining higher education as a place, as a bastion of, so-called anti-Semitism and hatred of Israel and all these other unfounded things. And that is their inroad into the undoing of these higher learning institutions. And it is so incumbent upon students and grad students and workers on these universities to not buy this bullshit, like to stand up for themselves and the students and everybody else on the campuses, because nobody else is doing it. Nobody's doing it. And it's wild to see. So I support you. I salute you. Thank you so much for being on this show. Where can people find out more about your local and support it?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving some space for the labor movement, the young labor movement, to share what it is that we are doing and can do to continue broadening the reach of our movement. Follow us on social media, UAW_4811, to stay up to date. I guess I can say the next milestone or the next moment that you should look out for is this Thursday, when we're actually going to have that court hearing date in Orange County. The ruling of that hearing is going to determine whether their strike is permanently enjoined and we need to completely cease strike activity or no longer after that day. But it might have larger consequences because the ruling might go as far as saying that we cannot go on a strike until our contract ends.
Well, yeah.
Right. So we definitely are getting ready for that day, but also getting ready for the longer term and understanding that whatever happens on Thursday, we still need to continue building up power and building up support so that this is not the end, but just the beginning of this fight.
So many things happening Thursday. Best of luck. I hope people, if they can, show up and support. But thank you. Annie, you're the best. Annie was taken from me. I was trying to get Annie Valoria Winnett. Wonderful to speak to you. And thank you all. Wonderful to not speak to you if you're listening. We got one segment that I'm going to do a little solo final fun segment here. Because we are in a swing, big old fundraising swing for our boy, Don Trump. Even though the billionaires are lining up behind Donald Trump, he still needs money. And if you thought that Democratic fundraising emails were pathetic, which they are, they're horrible. I think Trump might have him beat. And just in the last week, we've seen so many examples of the cringiest fundraising emails. Now, this could be an episode or a segment called The Cringies, but no, we're going to call it Fuckboy Fundraising because there is a theme. Fuckboy fundraising. It goes something like this. Please, baby, I love you. Why won't you give me money? Please. No, I'm not gonna feed your cat while you're away. I'm never gonna move in with you. In fact, I don't even really love you, and I am dating many other people, but please give me money. And Donald Trump has fully embodied this. But okay, so there's a few things. So one of them is he's now claiming he was tortured in Georgia right before he had his mugshot taken. This is from his website. I want you to remember what they did to me. They tortured me in the Fulton County jail and took my mugshot. So guess what? I put it on a mug for the whole world to see. Claim your mug, mugshot limited edition with Trump's face that says not guilty on it. Great. Can I just say, to get that graphic, and if you're listening, I'll just explain what it looks like. Remember like early internet, like early GeoCities websites where people really didn't understand like the kerning on letters and like the amount of padding around borders from the little blocks that you had to put to make a website look professional? You didn't know I had that website language. Oh, your girl did a little bit of web design. Oh, fuck around and find out. Okay, so imagine if like basically 1997 called and wants his websites back because all of Trump's websites are like, is this a bit? Are you doing this on purpose to look like a boomer created a website and like is trying to guess like how many like what intro to HTML is this shit? It's so funny and it's so scammy, right? Like, you know, immediately when you like get a scam email, you like go to the website and if like the kerning and like the spacing's a little off, you're like, it's a scam. It's clearly a scam. So anyway, that's the guy running for president, y'all. So that's not that bad in terms of the fuckboy stuff. But here we go. Here's another one. Would you still love me if I'm arrested? This is from the I am Donald Trump contact@windonaldtrump.com account. Would you still love me if I'm arrested? Would you visit me in prison? If we only had a few minutes of a conjugal visit, what would you use? Your mouth? Would you give mouth sex to me? Would you love me? Like, what the fuck is this? Would you still love... Like, what is this? What is happening right now? Would you still love me if I were arrested? I mean... No, I feel like you're like kind of toxic for me just as like a person. I'm just feel like I'm ready as a country to move beyond you. Like that was the old me and I just needed that chaos in my life. And now I'm just like really trying to focus on me. And I just feel like I shouldn't slide back into this. Is that cool? Can I put spam on the inbox now? Here's another one. This one's really romantic. You're the reason I wake up every morning. I love you to the moon and back, and I really mean that. And that was from a Trump email on May 3rd. I love you to the moon and back, and I really mean that. First of all, if you mean something, you don't have to say, and I really mean it. You look good, and I really mean that. Like, that is the most, I just did an Elaine Bennis face. That is the most like, I really mean that. Get away from me. First of all, this is more intimacy than he's shown with his own wife. Like, he's never said to Melania, I love you to the moon and back. Who is, like, honestly, who is writing this? Someone, like, who's doing just nonstop ecstasy in the Trump campaign? And like, you're so special. Your hair is really soft. Your eyes glitter like the stars. Give me money. All right, but here's one of my favorites. Do we have a timestamp on this? I'm not sure, but Donald J. Trump, in your inbox, are you still awake? I can't sleep. I can't sleep. Come under my pillow fort with me, where white lives are the only lives that matter. I'm scared. You know what you need, Donald Trump? You need Sunset Lake CBD gummies, sleep gummies. Holler at him, coupon code Frantifa. My God, that is funny. Are you awake? Tap, tap, tap. Why didn't it say tap, tap, tap in that? Tap, tap, tap. Honey, did you hear that noise? That's the subject line. Honey, was that you or the cat? Subject line. Honey, could you give me money, please? It's 3 a.m. I know, but I need money in my dream. So fucking funny. The most fuckboy shit. Oh my God. So good. It's so good, but he's going to need it. He needs the money. There are a lot of court cases still coming down the pike, and he's going to need a soft landing pad if he doesn't make it to the White House first. What could go wrong? A man needing to become president to stay out of jail. It's perfect. Greatest democracy on earth. Guys, that's been the Bitchuation Room. A little bit of a different show, but what a show. Nothing but the best. Nothing but the best guests. Thank you so much for being here. Let's read some comments. Let's listen to the fart song. Let's do all the things. Jen Skosmos was the first, or Skosmos, said Linda Sarsour's episode in 2020 was the first TBR episode I saw. Happy to see Linda back. I know, it's been way too long since she's been on. But what a clarity, like the voice of clarity. Hef says they agreed to let Julian live in the bathroom Mar-a-Lago. Yes, we didn't talk about Julian Assange finally being freed. This is wonderful. This is good news. He should be out of, house arrest or at a UK jail. Should have been that a long time ago. We should protect whistleblowers, but also he definitely tried to sell information to Trump in order for Trump to let him go. Did Trump let him go? No, he didn't. So I feel like we all learn our lesson, which is no red-brown alliance. Don't cozy up to Trump and his stooges because you think maybe he's going to help out the so-called left. Not going to happen. But again, thank God Julian Assange is free. It's great. Christo Stefan, you're so sweet. You're decades younger than I am, and you're my mentor. Shut up. It is crazy to have an 18-year-old mentor, isn't it? The Swede, catching this show for the first time is going to be great. That's right, over on Twitch. Gary Cooper, how do you do so many shows? It seems like a huge job. I don't sleep, except when I do occasionally. I don't know, dog. I don't know. It's too much. It's too much news. Tip this show, TBR-Live on Venmo, TBR on Cash App if you are feeling so generous, or become a patron. Or send the show a super sticker, guys. Sometimes my shows get demonetized. It's very sad. So I miss out on the $5.60 that YouTube gives me. Instructor, thank you for your super chat. Says, I still wear a mask today. I mean, honestly, on public transportation. Just Julie, where's the damn ADA? This represents a death threat to me and so many people. Absolutely. People who are immunocompromised or who have long COVID. I mean, exposing them or requiring them to not wear masks is bonkers. Robert says the Trump-Biden debates are like your father and your father-in-law wrestling bare-chested at your eldest daughter's wedding reception. Definitely. Very drunk. And Vitingale, thanks so much, says Linda Sarsour and Frantifa LFG. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And thank you, Electron Creations, for the sweet, sweet words. Marco, the Brazilian, fan of Linda since the Bernie days. Yeah, same. I mean, Linda is the realist. Like, Linda is the fucking realist. And she's so thoughtful and so sweet. And she's so, I love her. Rachel Atwood's going to phone bank for Bowman right now. I love it. And Count Juan says, the root of my politics is basically healthcare and workers' rights. This was great. That's a good base to have your politics on. And Todd Gentry, thank you so much for that super chat. And with that, why don't we do this? Why don't we just do this? Let's do, what do we do? Hang on. Here we go. The fart song. For the live Bitchuation Room / Bad Hasbara and live stand-up. So do not miss that. Tickets in descriptions wherever you are watching this. Thank you so much. For patrons at $10 or more, we got a new one. Cookie Monster. What up? You're the best. You're the sexiest MFer alive today. Not tomorrow, just today. Mike Boyd from Mayor, thank you so much for resubscribing over on Twitch. And Zeoduck, thank you for your little bit. I love it. Thank you, Looney Tunes, for resubscribing. Also 6 months strong. Jimmy Nails 86, giving out a community sub over on Twitch. Love y'all. And thank you to Paige Omek, our producer, to Maximilian Inhofe, and to Andy Vasoyan, our editor. We stream Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and Twitch. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Bitchuation Pod, TikTok and Instagram at Bitchuation Room. And remember to fight the power, to fuck the patriarchy, to free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, be about it.